All right. Hello, everyone. If you are here for the Sandhills at Sherburne, a Fall Phenomenon program, you are in the right spot. I will be giving it a couple more seconds just in case anyone's still struggling to find the program. It looks like we have a good amount of people tuning in today, so I'm really glad to see you all here. It might be the weather, but we're happy to have you anyways. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I am Ashley. I am going to be moderating the program today. I am a Visitor Services Corps member at Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. All right. And I'm sure plenty more people will be tuning in. But to start us off, I will be handing it off to Myrna. Myrna is the president of the Friends of Sherburne, who do a ton for the refuge, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to her. All right. Well, thank you, Myrna.
Thanks, Ashley. Hey, we're really happy. I'm so happy to be here tonight. Welcome everybody for this program. We're looking forward to it. We are a group of over 400 members in the Friends of Sherburne, and we've been around since 1993. We support the refuge in a lot of the activities that they do. And what you can count on the Friends to do is support the refuge, like by bringing kids to the refuge for student experiences and helping to do other types of nature education for not only children, but adults also. We also support the refuge by providing information and visitor facilities for refuge visitors. Like this year, we helped complete and fund the renovation of the first stop of the wildlife drive. Maybe some of you have been there and taken advantage of the new facilities there. Check it out. And we also have worked to make sure that refuge events are free and open to all, so that when we get back to having things like the Wildlife Festival, that all those activities are free for the folks that come. We also this year, of course, have been supporting a lot of the online programming that the refuge staff and Jenny have done a great job of bringing to you here on live streams. So we're looking forward to the program tonight. There's also another event going on right now, and that is out at the Wildlife Refuge, as we're going to talk about tonight, our special guests, the Sandhill cranes. Well, the Friends have been throwing the last couple of weeks a virtual Sandhill celebration, and it's really all in good fun because we think about the thousands of cranes out there gathering at St. Francis, and they're having a party. So if you would like, you can give them a dinner item it's all virtual, it's all in fun. Dinner item like cattail casserole or frog legs. Just go to our site called give.classy.org Sandhill Celebration. And I'll be posting that link on the feed here next to the event. So you can click on it a little later if you want to come back to it. And what you can do if you do make a donation this year is you'll be getting a free bandana. And it is specially designed by Ashley, who's our host and moderator tonight. She's a very talented lady and pulled this together in her spare time, by the way. And also you'll get a Friends membership, which will bring with it newsletters that keep you up to date and e-news. You get a 10% discount in the nature store. And best of all, you're supporting all these great things that I talked about a little bit earlier. All these activities at the refuge that the Friends support, you'll be part of that. So thank you for being here tonight. And I want to get back to Ashley with the program. So Ashley, there you go.
Haha, it took me a second to unmute myself there. Thank you so much, Myrna.
You bet.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Right before we start the program, I'm going to go through a few housekeeping things. In case you know anyone that really wanted to be here but couldn't, this program will be recorded. You can find it later on our Facebook page here where you are watching it. Right, it'll either be pinned to the top of the page or it'll be under the videos tab. And we're also going to include a few maps. Those maps will be posted afterwards in a follow-up post. So keep an eye out for those, and also ask plenty of questions. We'd love to hear your questions. We love to hopefully answer your questions. Some of them we might have to do a little bit of research after. But with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get into the program. So I'm going to introduce Elena Larkin. She is the Visitor Services Manager at Sherburne, and she's going to be doing our presentation today. So welcome, Elena. I'll leave it. It's all up to you.
Okay, well, thank you. And good evening, everyone. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Like Ashley said, I'm Ranger Elena, and I'm excited to talk about Sandhills at Sherburne this evening. So overall, more and more, October is becoming the month of cranes at the refuge. We've been seeing an upward trend in peak crane numbers from year to year, and Sherburne sees one of the largest gatherings of this species in the state. So it's a fun fall phenomenon to follow. There's a lot to unpack about sandhill cranes in general. So tonight we're going to focus on the fall staging population. And so I'll start off by touching with why do they stage at Sherburne? You know, why do we see this gathering annually in the fall? And then we're going to move on to an average day in the life of a crane, see kind of what they're doing throughout the day. And then correlate that to where you can expect or start to look for them when you're trying to looking for viewing opportunities. Because if we can predict kind of their behavior throughout the day, you have a better chance of locating them and getting a good viewing opportunity. And then lastly, I'll briefly cover how staff estimate the crane counts during our weekly point count surveys and kind of go behind the scenes in that aspect. How do we come up with that magical number? And I did want to let you know, this is the first in a two-part series. So next week, Ashley is going to host a program called Sandhills at Sherburne, from colt to crane. And that will focus more and delve deeper into the life history of cranes, you know, from their diet to courtship behaviors to their family unit and things like that. So if you're interested in sandhill cranes as a whole and want to know a little bit more about their background, I would definitely tune in next Thursday. It's going to be the same time, same place. So 7 p.m. next Thursday. Okay, so first off, the first thing we need to address is why Sherburne? Sherburne is on the migratory path for the eastern population of cranes. And so if you look at the map on the left portion of this, that orange shaded area indicates the breeding range of the eastern population. So it encompasses the Great Lakes region and parts of Canada as well. And so we see some of those cranes staging and resting at Sherburne on their southern journey. And so we're very likely seeing cranes from northern Minnesota and as well from Canada. You'd think that those cranes in Canada, kind of on the north of Lake Superior, would take the shortest route and would head straight south. But as we'll find out throughout tonight's program, cranes are quirky and they don't love to fly over large bodies of water. So they're going to take a longer route and likely travel through Minnesota and potentially stage at Sherburne on their southern migration route. And so birds that stage at Sherburne, looking at this map, you can see they would ultimately, the end spot for migration is Florida for the eastern population. But it all depends on weather. These sandhill cranes are pretty smart and energy efficient. And if they only have to go to southern Indiana and can find food and water throughout the winter, then they'll hang around. But while they're staging at Sherburne, we think that they find both safety and food here at the refuge on the large wetland that they roost in overnight. And so that's why they gather here, a time to rest, regroup, fuel up. And then once winter weather becomes cold enough, which is it's always hard to judge from year to year, then they move on their journey. So if we look at kind of those peak numbers throughout the years, one of the first times this fall phenomenon was recorded was in 1992, with less than 100 cranes estimated to be staging on the refuge. And so fast forward to today, or to last year, we broke our record with over 14,000 birds estimated to be using the refuge. As of yesterday, our weekly crane count estimated 9,485 birds. So we're getting up there. And now the big question is, with this week's early snowstorm and cold snap, how long will the cranes hang around? And only they can tell us. They are tough birds, and the wetland that they're in still has open water. So they're likely to hang around for a little bit longer, but we'll see when they decide to head south. And so over the years, we've seen that peak number increase overall. And so there's, it's likely because they discovered Sherburne as a place, as a staging location that provides that safety and good habitat for them. And as well, likely because the eastern population is becoming more stable, that population has increased over time and has expanded its range as well. So expanding farther westward. So that could be a reason for those increased numbers. So if we want to move on, we're going to talk about the daily habits of a crane. So pictured here are sandhill cranes on the St. Francis Pool, that large wetland that the majority of the cranes roost overnight in. And just to preface it, this wetland, the northern portion where these photos are taken, is in an area closed to the public for the sake of the cranes, to provide them and other migratory birds that safe area with minimal human disturbance. So the photos that are taken here are taken by staff and volunteers involved in monitoring the crane population. And there are some viewing opportunities for the southern portion of this wetland. So we'll get to that piece. And so the sandhills, like I said, roost overnight here, and they begin their day with sunlight. So sunlight is an indication for them to wake up. They don't have an alarm clock, so they don't have to wake up before dark like some of us do these days. Sunlight is their indication. So dawn up to sunrise, they're starting to stir. They're starting to communicate with each other, stretch their wings. If it got cold enough overnight and they didn't move their legs enough, they're starting to wiggle their legs to break free any thin ice that's come around them. And in the next photo, we can see kind of the indication of that waking up behavior, that morning light on them, stretching their wings, starting to hop around, trying to figure out what the day holds. And in the next photo, we'll see them starting to make that decision. For most of them, one of the first things on their minds is breakfast. So just like us, they wake up and they're hungry. So they know that they need to go find food for the day. So traditionally during the breeding season of a crane, they would find food in wetlands. That's a natural food source between frogs and aquatic invertebrates and other things that live in the wetland. But this time of year, they're going for a very efficient food source. They want it to be easy to find and have a lot of calories, you know, a lot of bang for your buck. And so you see cranes in the background of this photo starting to take off and leaving the wetland. So that's part of their morning habits, is heading out to find food for the day. And you'll see if you get the chance, when you get the chance to observe the cranes on the pool, that there's almost like a peer pressure effect that occurs. So cranes on the southern portion of the pool, as they start to fly northward over their other cranes, you'll see groups join them, and it just becomes kind of a tide, a ripple effect as they leave. And so then the next photo you see, they are headed out. You see those groups, more cranes leaving. And then the next one, they are flying out, headed to seek food for the day, which most of it around here, they're looking for recently harvested farm fields. So that waste grain, waste corn that's still in the field with the stubble of the plants allows them easy access to that. So that's where they tend to leave the refuge and go out to the farms for the day. And so I have a quick, about a 30-second video to show you of the cranes from yesterday morning and groups of them starting to leave the refuge. So you'll get to kind of feel like you're there and listen to the sound of the cranes. And I'll leave it at that. I'm gonna let you just listen to the cranes. So whatever you're doing right now, take your moment, evening of Zen, and be with the cranes.
Let me know in the comments if the sound isn't working. I believe I turned it on, but I'm not exactly positive.
Okay. And so you see them, they're kind of leaving, heading out for the day. And their end destination is it doesn't want to let us leave the cranes. They want us to keep listening to them. They're pretty insistent.
Okay. It keeps wanting to hit the play button. Let me see. Come on.
That's okay. Cranes are not known for being quiet. So we'll talk about that when we talk about kind of where to find them. But a good strategy is to keep your windows down in some sense. You can blast the heat because it's cold out, but keep your windows down and you'll hear them. And so here you see them in the farm field. So when we're often looking for wild animals, you don't often think of agriculture as your destination, but that's what the cranes are searching for. So that's where we find them during the day. They kind of move around, find food. And then as daylight wanes, as the day comes to an end, they start to make their way back to the refuge. And you can see here too, cranes, I think they look very graceful when they're flying, but when they start to land, they also look a little quirky. So I find amusement when they put their landing gear down and they're starting to land. And so we have a video kind of illustrating them returning back to the wetland in the evening. So this is another one. We'll see. Ashley will play this one. Okay, and so, and then the cranes kind of come back to the to the wetland where they were roosting in, you know, ready to settle in for another night and start their day over again. So it's really dictated by sunlight. Dawn in the morning is an indication for them to wake up and go find food, and then sunset and dusk is an indication for them to come back to the refuge wetland to settle in for the night. And so with that, that gives us a good setup for where to find them. And so I wanted to start off with dawn and dusk viewing. There's two different options that we'll highlight, but overall, if you're planning to come out to the refuge at dawn and dusk, especially with this temporary foray into winter weather, I would recommend that you dress for it with layers and dress warmer than you think you need to be, because then you'll be comfortable. October mornings in general are crisp, and this year, or you know, this weekend, they'll be extra crisp, so you'll thank yourself. But so the most popular on refuge location to view the sandhill cranes in the fall is going to be at the parking lot on County Road 70. So that's where the binoculars are on this map. And the parking lot is located about 0.7 miles west of the junction with County Road 3, which is a bigger road that you'd be on your way to get to the viewing area. So this viewing area at around sunrise and sunset is going to be great for overhead crane viewing. So those cranes you watched on the video that were flying north off the refuge, and they were just starting to go over a tree line. Then they eventually fly over County Road 70. So if we look at the next photo, you can kind of get an idea of where that parking lot is. So this County Road 70 parking lot typically can be hard to find. So one of the blessings of this snowstorm is that it's highlighted the parking lot. You can kind of see the blanket of white amidst the surrounding prairie. So you can pull off into that parking lot and either watch the cranes from your vehicle or outside of your vehicle. And then you have a wide expanse of prairie in front of you with that tree line. So as the cranes come over and start approaching and then go overhead of you, you get a decent amount of time to observe them. And they'll come by in groups of anywhere from groups of, sometimes they're single, to, you know, up to 20 to 30 or more in a single group coming off of the wetland. And so to see kind of the experience of County Road 70, Ashley's going to play this short video. So it gives you just a little bit of a taste, and that's just one flock going over. And usually timing on County Road 70 is going to be best from somewhere around sunrise to maybe up to 2 hours after sunrise, and then that sunset time frame as well. So for the more adventurous, there is a way to get to access and view a portion of the St. Francis Pool where the cranes do stage overnight. And these three routes all offer that opportunity, either hiking or biking. This time of year, from September 1st through February 28th, the refuge's service roads are open to the public for hiking or biking. So if you're looking to, which biking is usually better when there's not snow on the ground. So maybe a more traditional year, or those of you that are extra adventurous. The red route is best for hiking only, where the yellow and blue are good routes for biking as well. The yellow and blue routes have more of a gravel-based road. The red east-west portion of that service road is a little bit softer, so not as optimal for bikers. And it is a little bit of a hike in. The shortest route is just shy of 2 miles one way. But it gets you a little bit closer to the cranes. So you can go, all routes end at the water control structure. So that's marked with the do not pass symbol on the map. And you can see a photo of what you would be looking at for the water control structure on your lower right. It's essentially a bridge that you would be crossing, and it's where the St. Francis exits the St. Francis Pool, where the river exits the wetland. And so you can go right up to that bridge, but you can't cross that bridge or go beyond it. And staff do use these roads for access for monitoring and research purposes. So you may see staff out and about, but so if you see a vehicle, that's probably why staff are out and about doing something. And so it's a little bit extra effort, but it can be definitely worth it. And this is a dawn or dusk is optimal as well, just because if you're putting in the effort to get there, more cranes will be present at those time frames. And so this is a video from the water control structure, so you could see kind of what you could hear and see from that location. Okay, so if mornings are not your thing, offsite options are going to be the best bet for you. And so during the day, the sandhill cranes are mostly found offsite, off of the refuge, searching for food. And so the best thing to look for when you're going out and scouting and trying to find these fields of cranes is recently harvested farm fields. Every day they kind of move around to different fields, but as of yesterday, they were found near the junction of Highway 95 and Benton County Road 7. So if you're more familiar with Sherburne's County Road names, it's Sherburne County Road 11 turns into 7 once you cross into Benton County. But right at that juncture on the southwest corner of that, in the field there were up to 1,000 cranes yesterday. They're a little bit farther off, that this set wasn't as close to the road. So you'd want to bring binoculars or a camera lens to help you get a little bit closer. Regardless, you'll enjoy the sound of the cranes, but those always help you get a little bit closer, because all of these options we are talking about are on private property. So now that we're off the refuge and this is private property, we ask you to respect that and to stay, either stay in your vehicle or stay on the roadside to avoid trespassing. And so then other cranes, other locations or fields to start looking at would be north of 95 along that same road, along Benton County Road 7. I had luck on the west side of the road up in that area. This year, most of the cranes we spotted have been north of Highway 95. So if you're familiar with crane viewing at the refuge, traditionally they've been closer to the refuge boundary, more in the area of Santiago and Glendorado, but I don't think those fields have been harvested yet, so they're having to work a little harder and making us work harder to find them. So, it does bring your patience, bring some, make sure you have time. They can be, the reward is worth it when you stumble upon a good grouping of them. Okay, so last thing we're going to touch on, I know we're running close on time, is how staff estimate our crane counts. So crane counts are surveys that are conducted by refuge staff and volunteers in the month of October and early November. We do 3 to 4 a year. And the goal is for the first survey to be before the peak of cranes, and for the second or third survey to be the peak of cranes. And then crane counts end when we see a decrease. So if we go from, so next week, if we saw more than 9,500 cranes, we continue it a week after. But if we see a decrease next week, we'll assume that this week was our peak, and crane counts will conclude for the year. So it's all dependent on the cranes. If they stick around for a long time, we do more surveys. So we will see how they feel this year. But these surveys start at sunrise. They're conducted weekly, not only for biological data, but to help inform visitors what the crane situation is like. And then how the survey is conducted, if you look at the map, all of those red stars are where staff or volunteers are positioned. So it's a pretty independent survey. And staff and volunteers are equipped with a clipboard, a piece of paper, that's their data sheet, and a pencil, and potentially a pair of binoculars. So it's pretty low tech. And they're stationed at those locations, and they are in charge of recording the number of cranes that fly over them within their zone. And so their zone is determined kind of by that red box. So they have a portion, each staff member or volunteer has a portion of the sky in their direction that they're monitoring. So the overall goal is to capture and count all of the cranes that are leaving the wetland. The majority of cranes leave the wetland and go north, with the second most direction being west. And if you look at kind of the County Road 70 parking lot on that northern side of it, the staff member stationed there would watch the cranes come over the prairie, and then if they crossed the road behind them within their zone, they would be counted on their data sheet. And everyone, does their crane count a little bit differently. You record groups of cranes as they go over, but sometimes the cranes can be coming so quickly that you could be counting and have up to 200 cranes, in your mental count at a time. And then you write that number down, and then you move on and start over. And so when cranes are coming over slowly, you count every single crane. But when they're coming over in quick succession, you might estimate groups. If you see, if you have multiple large groups coming, you'll look at them and say, that's 5, 10, 15, okay, 17 there. And then you move on to the other group. And keep counting. So some good mental math ability to count in quick succession is helpful. But that's how we come up with the estimate to the best of our ability without double counting cranes. It gives us an idea how many cranes are hanging out at the refuge from year to year. So I know we've covered a lot of content, but this is the point you've waited for, the question and answer session, where Ashley and I are here to the best of our ability, willing to answer the questions you have during the time we have live, and then we can follow up afterwards for some other questions that you might stump us with.
All right, so I'll give it a second to wait for questions to come in. See if anyone has any. Which I'm sure they do, but will they ask?
I know, that's always the question. People have things that they're curious about.
Here we go. Are any cranes viewable from the wildlife drive?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's likely cranes that can be seen on the wildlife drive. If you're looking for really large numbers, the drive is usually not the best place to go. But we do have cranes that breed all year that are here in the refuge the spring, summer, and fall, and still have their territory set up on the drive. And so you're likely to see those groups. And this year, I know last week or before, there was a group of cranes that was eating wild rice on Stickney Pool, which is on the end of the drive. So I don't know if they're still hanging around there. But for really large groups, the wildlife drive is not necessarily the best place.
All right, we just got quite a little bump. Let's see. Sarah asks, are we looking for volunteers for crane counts?
In future years, yes, if you're interested in volunteering and volunteering specifically for crane counts, you can go to the refuge website under the Get Involved tab, and we can get you all signed up and ready for next year. This year, we're trying to do it as much as possible with staff at this point.
All right, and Dean asks, do we tag cranes?
Yeah, so at this point in time, we don't, and I think we don't band cranes, but I don't know if we've done that in the past. Sherburne has, quite a history with cranes and their population overall. So I don't know if that's something historically that the refuge did, but at this point in time, we don't do banding. I would imagine banding of cranes might only happen when they're young. They're a force to be reckoned with. I don't know, people capture geese and neck band them, but cranes have like a 6-foot wingspan and a beak.
I'll kind of follow that up. I have read of studies involving lots of cranes taking place at Sherburne, but I think most of those that I've looked at have been partnering with outside organizations for the most part. But yeah, I wonder what the process of banding a crane looks like.
Yeah. Very careful.
Scrolling here. Bruce asks, do cranes pair for life?
I'll let you answer that. I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of research for my program next week that will be focusing more on the life of sandhill cranes and kind of from egg to full out crane. So cranes do actually mate for life, which is super sweet. I won't go into too much detail, but they don't reach sexual maturity until about 2 years old, but sometimes they wait until like 7. So there's a wide range in there. And I'll go ahead and probably take this one too. What is the sandhill crane's wingspan? The greater sandhill cranes that we see at Sherburne tend to be about a 6-foot wingspan. So, all right. What would be a good date to see the most cranes?
Yeah, so typically we say end of October, early November is a good time frame if you want to see the highest potential number of cranes. The later in the month you get, though, is the bigger the gamble. This year, if you're interested in seeing cranes, I would probably do it within the next week just because there's a risk of them deciding they've had enough of Minnesota and heading on south. So this weekend or next week could be good timing to get out there. I know morning forecasted temperatures are chilly, so lots of layers. We have to go dig through and find our winter clothes again.
And kind of following up with that, let me see, I lost the question. I know it's here. How late in the season are the cranes able to be seen? So how long are they here?
Yeah, really, it depends on Mother Nature. So if in a year when we have a very mild November, they could be here until mid-November or, even end of November. So it really depends on weather conditions. The temperature plays a piece in it, and then the right winds. If the right winds come for the cranes, and it's optimal for their southern journey, sometimes that moves them southward. So it really varies from year to year.
All right, let's see. Do cranes get lighter in color this time of year versus earlier in the year?
Yeah, so cranes, especially the cranes that are coming through, they're not only, they've molted, so they've gotten a fresh set of feathers. Sandhill cranes, their natural color is a light gray. The cranes that we see at Sherburne and the area throughout the breeding season actually paint their feathers with an iron-rich sediment to blend in and camouflage more with the cattails and native prairie grasses. Helps give them that rusty look. So when they get a fresh set of feathers that come in, they haven't been dyed in that way. And some species, migrating from farther north, maybe don't have that same habit. So maybe they're gray from the get-go.
Let's see. Do cranes eat soybeans as well as corn?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I think all sorts.
I also want to say yes.
And I think sorghum too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think they're terribly picky. They just kind of like the fast food. They can find it, high calorie, tastes good, easy.
And I'll go ahead and take this next one. Catherine asks, how many eggs do cranes lay and how many are hatched at a time? So sandhill cranes, they tend to lay anywhere between 1 and 3 eggs, but normally only about 1 to 2 actually make it to hatching. And if you tune in next week, we'll learn even more about colts. All right. I think we still have quite a few questions, but we're calming down a little bit. Let's see. When they return north in the spring, do they always come back to the location that they were at the year before? Or does that kind of vary a little bit? So I guess, do they go back to the same spot?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know that we have any banded sandhill cranes at the refuge to know that specific ones are coming back to the same place. But it is pretty typical behavior to return, especially if you have a paired mate, to return to the same area that you've had success in the past. I don't know that off the top of my head. Ashley, do you?
I do not on it.
That's something for us to look up. We'll get back to you.
Yep, that's a research question. All right, let's see. Joni asks if we have a video or audio clip of the cranes before we close the live streams, or will we post it on our website? I think we were potentially planning on following up with some videos on the Facebook. Correct?
Yeah.
Elena, but I think we can probably definitely post some of those.
Yeah, we'll plan to right away tonight. I'll plan to post them in the comments of this post, and then we might post them in the future as individuals, but especially so you can watch them again, and if they came over choppy at all during the live program.
All right, and I think Bruce has a question that might stump us, but I'm going to ask it anyways. As Bruce has observed flying cranes, he has seen some hanging with one leg that almost seems to dangle. Do you have any idea whether leg injuries are common?
So, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how common they are, but I do know that it happens, and I have seen cranes flying with, instead of the 2 legs right behind them, one is bent down, and they seem to, survive the best they can. They're still getting around, but I don't know how common they are. So again, another research question. We'll get back to you.
I imagine if any sort of smaller predator tries to go after them, the legs are probably a pretty easy target since they're so long.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jennifer asks, is there any difference in the two types of cranes you mentioned at the start of the presentation? And if I remember right, that's probably mentioning the two populations, the mid-continental and the eastern.
Yeah, so the biggest difference is that the eastern population of cranes, so that Great Lakes breeding area, is primarily composed of greater sandhill cranes. So they're a larger subspecies of sandhill cranes. And the mid-continent population that migrates through the Dakotas and Nebraska, so that Platte River, Nebraska, those sandhills that go through there, they are mostly lesser sandhill cranes. And so the other difference is that the population overall, the eastern population is a little bit over 100,000 individuals in number. That mid-continent population is somewhere around 400,000. So it's a little bit larger overall. And it does go, they think it goes through Minnesota. The northwest corner of Minnesota sees some mid-continent population migration.
And let's see, Tina has quite a few good questions. Let's see. What is the best time of day to see sandhill cranes? And with hunting season approaching, is there anything people should keep in mind while at the refuge?
Yeah, those are both good questions, and it brought up something I forgot to mention, so I appreciate that. So first off, best time to see cranes really depends on where you want to see them. For that overhead flight, or for that adventurous hike in to the refuge, dawn and dusk are the best time frame. So around sunrise, around sunset, at those locations. During the day, they are out feeding in the fields pretty much all day. So I don't know that there's necessarily a best time of day to go find them. But if you're out on the county roads, maybe not around rush hour. Less people are on the roads right now, but people, the speed limit is up there at 55 or 60. So when you're moving through there, that's something to be mindful of. As for the refuge, we are areas, the area that you would be hiking into west of County Road 5 to go to the St. Francis Pool is open to deer archery this time of year, along with small game. So it's to your benefit to wear blaze orange of some sort or some bright color that's not naturally found in the forest when you're hiking in and out. Likely they'll be far enough away from the service roads, but never hurts to make yourself a little more visible. And then the firearm deer season is 9 days in November, and I think it starts on November 7th. I will have to look that up because that's a time frame.
Say I could throw out a date, but it probably would not be correct.
I can look it up right now. That's that time frame. The refuge, it sees a higher concentration of hunters. Were pretty popular for that season. So something to definitely be aware of. So it's opening right now. So if we want to move on to the next question, I'll clarify. Oh, it's November 7th through 15th is the firearm deer season.
Someone just commented the 7th is correct, so. All right, and we have one final question. So if anyone else has questions, ask now, or well, I guess message us or wait until next week. I can't say they'll never be answered. Is there a bear population on the refuge?
Yeah, so we do see black bears on the refuge, not that often, and it's not a common sighting, but I would say every year there's somewhere between 3 to 5 confirmed sightings of black bears on the refuge. And depending where you are around the hazelnuts or berry patches, sometimes you can find some bear scat too. So they leave some evidence behind for us to find. So we don't, to my knowledge, we haven't discovered any areas where they're hibernating on the refuge or things like that, or seen them with young cubs. But as the black bear population expands within Minnesota in general, it is coming farther southward. So we're kind of on that cusp. And I know folks around the refuge definitely see them visiting their feeders. So they definitely, like the cranes, take advantage of that free and easy food source.
And then let's see, is it Stephanie asks, is it easy to distinguish between male and female sandhill cranes? If you aren't sure, I kind of have an answer.
Okay, I will let you, because I don't know of any major differences.
There are really no major differences. I do know that the males are commonly a little bit larger, just like it's not significant. You probably can't really tell while they're all moving around. But the males are larger and they tend to weigh about 14, I want to say 14 pounds, and the females tend to weigh about 10.
Which isn't a lot for being Minnesota's tallest bird, standing, almost a lot of them 4.5, 5 feet tall. So only weigh 10 to 14 pounds. All legs.
And they need to fly, so.
That's true.
All right, well, I think that is all of our questions. Going once, maybe, going twice. Give it a few seconds, but I'll go ahead. Any more questions, we'll probably just try to answer in the comments. But yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. We have had an awesome turnout, so it's awesome to see you all here. But all right.
And then we can, do you want to bring up the slide with next week's information? We've talked about it multiple times, but one last reminder to join us next week.
Let's see. I have it somewhere.
Ashley's going to delve in deeper. So if you tune in next Thursday, evening at 7 p.m., she's going to talk about crane life history. So like she said, from egg to adult. So a lot of the more specific questions about cranes in general, she'll focus on, and you can tune in and see if you can stump her next week.
Oh no, you're giving them time to think about their questions.
All right. You ready?
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Any more questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll try to be ready for your questions next week. But yeah, have a great night, everyone.